Hello everyone and welcome to the Love Gym. In this video we are going to look at the core. What is it? What does it do? Why is it so cool? Why do I love it so much? So for the purpose of this video we are going to look at the interior core, so the core that is on the front of our body. And in order to visualize it, we are going to do a geometric representation, sort of Vitruvian Man, Leonardo da Vinci style. The two curved lines here at the bottom that I'm drawing in, that's going to represent the bowl of our pelvis. Top two curves are going to represent the bottom of our rib cage. Draw some ribs in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from deepest to most superficial in terms of the muscles in our core. First muscle I'm going to draw is going to be the transverse abdominis. There's a horizontal. And then I'm going to draw a little triangle here at the bottom. This is going to be the internal oblique. Think bottom corner to center. Do that on both sides, and then we're going to do a mirror image on the other side of the external obliques. So those fibers run in the opposite direction, so they're perpendicular to each other. And then the last line we're going to put in is going to go up and down. That's going to be the rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle, a muscle that everyone is familiar with. Most people, when they think of core, they think of that muscle, but as you can see, there's a lot more going on here. So you can see this really cool structure here, right? We almost have this circle with all these different radians coming out. I'm going to draw the rest of the muscle fibers again from deep to superficial. So transverse abdominis. Transverse abdominis, the main function of that muscle is to create tension and to compress or expand the abdominal cavity, which ultimately affects the space in the thoracic cavity. So it's involved in breathing. When we compress the transverse abdominis, that pushes things up, creates less space in the thoracic cavity, creates more pressure, which pushes air out. So right when we exhale, we pull the belly button in. And then the opposite, when we relax, everything opens up, diaphragm drops down, more space in the thoracic cavity, more volume, lower pressure, air comes in. Just finish the obliques there, that kind of, like I said, crosswork of fibers. And then the rectus abdominis here is the last one. As you can see, there's this amazing network or meshwork, I guess we should call it. I'm going to draw on the hips. You know, if I was an engineer and I was told to draw a structure that is incredibly resistant to force, this would be a pretty good idea, right? You have all these overlapping lines. The nice thing about our body is that these aren't solid structures, right? They're malleable and they're movable. So not only is it incredibly structurally sound, but it also gives us an amazing way to generate force in any sort of vector, any sort of direction that we want. These points that I'm filling in here, these are going to be my anchor or movement points. So when I'm programming or trying to design exercises or series of exercises, these points are going to help me do it. And we'll get into that in a second, why we can do that. All right, the ones labeled 1, so 1, 2, 3, those 3 points are going to correspond to the transverse abdominis. So the movement of those points are essentially going to be out or in, like I said, involved in compression and expansion of the abdominal cavity. And then numbers 2 here, these 2 dots are going to correspond to the rectus abdominis. And then I'm going to label these 4 here, number 3, and that will correspond to the external and internal oblique. I'm grouping them together because their movements are very similar and they often work in conjunction. All right, let me finish writing this and then we'll talk about how we can use this diagram to program and work on our core in a very comprehensive way. All right, so that's the internal and external. Just pause here. All right, so why is this useful? Let's use the rectus abdominis, for example. Most people, if we say let's work on our six-pack, what exercise should you do? Crunches. Okay, great exercise. We take this point and we move it down. Okay, so that corresponds to movement of the rib cage down towards the pelvis. That's a great exercise. How many of those people do you think are doing hip tucks? The exercise that's involved in bringing this point, number 2, this direction? Probably very few. So as you can see, what this diagram shows us is that all of these muscle fibers have 2 points of connection, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. if we want to train them in a way that's really efficient and gives us the most use of this network, this amazing meshwork of muscles, we have to look at both sides of the equation. So in the following videos you'll see on my website, what we'll do if we want to work on the rectus abdominis, we're going to work on an exercise that isolates that top point. We're going to work on an exercise that isolates the bottom point, and then we're going to look at how those work together. Okay, so this gives you a visual representation of the core. Hopefully it gives you an appreciation for kind of the amazing structure that it is, the amazing possibilities that we have in terms of movement and stability and force generation, force transferring. As you can see, I kind of nerd out about it. Anyway, I will stop the video there. And then obviously if you want to get a workout in, keep watching the next videos. And this diagram will help you understand how all these muscle fibers translate into movement and to how the core works. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. See you next time.